Auzi? Cătălin, nu te aud. Cătălin, par mute.
Gata.
Cătălin, ești pe mute.
Mă auziți? Mă auziți acum?
Văd.
Mă auziți acum?
Acum ești ok.
Perfect,
Da.
Se aude cu microfonie, Ana?
Nu, se aude
Bine ai
bine.
venit. Se aude bine.
Da,
Super.
bine v-am găsit. Mulțumesc.
Bine ai venit. Bine ați venit cu toții.
Cu toții, așa e.
Perfect. Ok, haideți acum să trecem pe limba engleză, pentru că ne adresăm practic lumii întregi. Ne-ar plăcea să învețe românește și chiar ar trebui să insistăm pentru asta. Ok, hello everyone. We're happy to be with you again today to share a lot of interesting information. Today is dedicated to a joint Romanian-American project, which was based on the idea of publishing and promoting Romanian writers in the United States. And because the Amazon platform allows access to literary works from anywhere in the world, in this way, we make Romanian creation available practically in every country. This year, the Carpathica 2020 anthology, whose cover was illustrated by architect Andrei Nicolescu. Let me show you. This is the cover. You see it? It's okay?
Yes, it's nice. Very nice.
Okay. Offers readers from all over the world beautiful and exciting stories like Stellavirus by Cristian from the USA, The Saurians of Time by Aurel Cărășel from Romania, The Metamorphosis Effect by Florin Giurcă from Romania, More People by Claudiu Murgan from Canada, Waterproof Castle by Constantin Pavel from Romania, Dust by Florin Purluca from Romania, This Story is Here to Stay by George Sauciuc from Romania and Ukraine, Crystals by Laszlo Tarco from Romania, Days Go by Daniel Timariu from Romania, and Country of the Dead by Ovidiu Vitan from Romania. Dr. Cristian Carstoiu, the editor of the anthology, and the writer Anamaria Borlan, will talk to us today about the Carpathica project and about the future stories that sci-fi fans from everywhere will enjoy. What can you tell us about the stories in the Carpathica 2020 anthology, Cristi?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Taking the connection on the other side of the pond, here in Atlantykron, yes. As you see, I've made my own setup here, so I feel like I'm on the island in Romania, even if it's like 5,000 miles away. And because of the time difference, first of all, I wish you to witness the sunrise with me. As you can see in my back, it's the crack of the dawn. So very soon you'll be able to see the sun. I'm gonna point my camera towards east and enjoy the beautiful sunrise of the southern skies.
Great. Great.
Yes, and first of all, yeah, I want you to send my best wishes to all my friends that are listening to us. Some of them I haven't seen in 15 years. Some of them I have never seen. But overall, it's a great remake here.
Yeah, you have mosquitoes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's real mosquitoes. Next time I'm gonna kill one, I'm gonna show it to you for you to believe me. It's a real mosquito. I'm not just faking. Not that many though. You know. I'm having some interesting birds in my backyard that kind of, you know, I encourage them to live around for the mosquitoes not to live too much, if you understand the point. Yeah. It's an ecosystem, as my son says. Our backyard is an ecosystem. So getting back to what we were talking about, we've chosen all these titles together with the publishing board the CSF Sci-Fi collection magazine that pretty much more or less all of us are involved. And I'm not particularly picky about these titles in that they're all good titles. It's a good startup project for what we want to do. The point on the long run is, as far as I'm concerned, to keep the bar as high as possible. Ideally, the moment we want to be on the international market, and luckily Amazon is the place to be, because honestly, if you're not on Amazon with an international market, then you're nothing, sort of saying. I mean, you can try, but it's going to be much harder. But the moment you're in the international market, you compete with everyone, and I mean everyone, because everyone that matters is on Amazon. So how do you make a difference? How do you shed the light on your work? So considering the long range project of promoting Romanian authors, Carpathica 2020 is just I wouldn't say even the first step, is the first inch that we move forward in this project. And probably one of the things that are the most challenging at this point is to find out the best writers, the best writings for us to display. It's like in any business, like in any market, it's challenging to get customers. So my thought is, if somebody who's reading Romanian writers the first time in their life, so not a Romanian writer, not a Romanian reader, but a random Joe from Kentucky, I don't know, that happens to download or just take a plane to somewhere and not having anything better to read, decides to look in our publishing. That random Joe should be so excited, should be so thrilled from his readings. Say, hey, who are these guys? Why did I never heard about these guys before? Else. So that's in my mind, in my soul, that's the goal. Because if you look on the sci-fi literature worldwide, everybody knows American writers, everybody knows, I don't know, English writers or French, German, and the list is not very long. Probably if I would ask any of you to name some Chilean sci-fi writers or some South African sci-fi writers, occasionally, if it's an extraordinary guy, you might remember that particular guy, but not a group of writers from smaller countries. So my idea is to be able that in a couple of years to create a brand for the Romanian writers, not for the individuals, but for the whole writers that we publish here. So whoever decides, hey, I've read that author, I didn't know the Romanians have such good writers, are there any others? The answer to be yes. And when they click and they scroll down and find other names that they don't know and just click on that, to be impressed, no matter which name or which work they click. That's my goal.
Great. Okay. Thank you for this interesting information. Now, can you tell us how was the story Stellavirus, your story? How was the Stellavirus received given the coronavirus pandemic? And what sci-fi explanation did you find regarding this epidemic in this story? This story was published in Carpathica 2020 and was the main story of this
Well,
anthology.
let me ask you the other thing first, and I'll ask you a question. You give me a short answer, and then I promise I'll give you a longer answer for your question.
Okay, okay.
How was Stellavirus received by the Romanian readers?
Okay, was a blow mind idea in back of this story about the pandemic, and we want to share to us this idea because was very new for this perspective about the coronavirus pandemic.
Okay. Now I'm gonna answer, as I promised, I'm gonna answer your question on the longer end.
Okay.
First of all, Stellavirus as a short story was written in a very short time, and you and I, we know how we came up with the idea and how fast I had to move through it, which pretty much developing the story, I realized I'm leaving too many loose ends for just one story. So right now I'm actually expanding the story to go beyond it and turn it into a novel. I'm not doing very well with that personally, in that I wasn't that prolific in the past few months. But it's working. It's work in progress. I have the idea. I have the layout. It's already written another 15-20% of the content. I'm honestly, I'm trying to let things cool down a little bit, because what happens is I don't want, how can I say that, the whole buzz with what happens to interfere with my thinking and my thoughts. Now, how was it received? I give it to a few people here to read it. Personally, people I knew, people that love sci-fi, people who typically are part of my beta readers group, sort of saying. Their reaction was mixed. I mean, nobody said it was a bad book, don't get me wrong. Mixed in the other way. Mixed in that some of them said it's too creepy. It might be true. Oh my God. Is there any truth in that short story? I mean, because the way I've put things into words, pretty much I kind of laid out on the same kind of development I use in Noah Poly, a professional setting, a professional scientist doing his research. I mean, everything goes like anything which should go in the research field. Only that by adding information one by one, and with a bit of luck and with a bit of chance in that, being exposed to certain information and making connections in his mind, he reaches an unsettling conclusion towards the end of the novella. So luck and chance play a role in unveiling the mystery behind the whole thing. But if you read it after, you know, trying to figure out what's going on and just having a closure of the whole plot, it just stops too soon, and that's when pretty much everybody said, "Hey, what's going on next? Is going to be a sequel? Are you going to?" Okay. And I told them this was written in just 2 weeks to be published on a tight deadline, and this is just 20% of the novel. So it's not going to be a sequel. It's going to be pretty much the whole novel to be written, hopefully within 6 months to a year from now. And then I've seen kind of how can I say it? They were relaxed. Okay, so that's not all. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, it's okay, right? I mean, it was really fun to because I had the same response from every single person that had read the book. They all said it's written in a paced manner that keep them, you know, alert. It just at the end it finishes too soon. The moment I told them it's gonna be much longer than that, everything was cool.
Okay, thank you very much. This was pretty much idea, because you don't develop to us the main idea of Stellavirus.
No.
Do you think the coronavirus, this COVID-19, it is an extraterrestrial virus?
Well, it's an interesting plot for a story, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about it, Anamaria now. And I want to ask her, what can you tell us about you, Anamaria, as a writer, and what works you have prepared from Carpathica 2021? Because we prepared this anthology right now, and in the January or February 2021, we published this new anthology. What, tell us about you as a writer, your history, your books, your stories.
Thank you for your questions. Hi to everyone, readers and writers and fans of the most beautiful literature genre, science fiction and fantasy. This is my opinion. And great speech, Christy, thank you. Now, if you can see, my camera is not working, but you can see one of my nicest profile picture.
Yes.
I am Anamaria Borlan. I'm a Romanian writer of science fiction and fantasy literature, and one of the editors of the science fiction collection magazine of ofCar Publishing House, for which I want to thank you very much, Mr. Cătălin.
Welcome.
Thank you. Besides of several novels and lots of short stories published in various anthologies and magazines on paper and online, I am the author of an epic long-running fantasy novel named The Blue Wings, with the primary title in Japanese, Aoi Tenshi Monogatari, Tales of the Blue Angel. Should I say a few words about this novel of mine, or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Tell us about your novel, because you have a brilliant idea, and your works was amazing.
Thank you very much. You were the first who discovered this very long epic novel. Volume 1 is composed of 10 separate books, and the main theme of the novel is about dreams, desires, demands, and fulfillment in a completely different world. The story is spreading over 1,000 of pages, depicting primarily about Japan and Great Britain, but the main action takes place in Japan. In the present days and in the past, and it's about a fabulous historical samurai with their religions, mythology, and very fantastic culture. I'm very passionate about the Japanese. In bottom line, it is about a tangled up destiny of two people. Firstly, it's about a teenager, an avid fan of rock music, who wants to turn into a true samurai like his forefathers. Then, a foretelling journey full of surprises and revelations of a young Victorian countess, Lady Elizabeth, who, along with her brother, sent on a mysterious mission, crossing oceans and continents, learning meanwhile many, many things, arrives, finally, eventually, in Japan. They meet in what I call it, a mystic Japan, where the past interlaces with the present and the present marks the past. Now, if you are curious to find out more about my writings, I invite you to visit the website of the Pafcon Publishing House and the 770.com website of the American writer and publisher Mike Glyer, and the British website Women in Sci-Fi on the Fantasy Hive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What works you have prepared for Carpathica 2021? You have some stories for us. You prepare an idea. You write on it right now.
Yes. As for the Carpathica of the next year, I actually am writing a fantasy story based on some science fiction elements. It is especially dedicated for this anthology, and I thank you for inviting me to take part of this beautiful work. About my story, I cannot say more, no spoilers.
Okay.
But I am looking forward to surprising you with my nice tale. So I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Anamaria.
Thank you.
Let's go to Cristian again, and I have a question for you from the writers from Romania, from USA, from Canada, from Europe. What conditions must the text of the Romanian authors meet in order to be able to send them to Century Benchmark Publishing, in order to be selected to be published in the following Carpathica anthologies? Cristi?
Yeah. Thank Catalin. Back here on Atlantykron.
Atlantykron, yeah.
Well, the thing is very simple. We have to look at the terms and conditions. I mean, not legal terms and conditions, but what happens when something is published on Kindle. First of all, there's a preview that everybody can see, and that preview is not very short. So that being said, any writing less than 5,000 words pretty much has a good chance to be seen in its entirety on the preview part. So because of that, I would strongly encourage writers to submit something that is at least 10,000 words. That would be the first thing. Now, the second thing is about pricing, and it's little known. Amazon has two different prices, two different royalty schemes. One is 35%, one is 70%. Makes sense to choose the 70%, right? But the 70% comes with a minimum threshold, which is higher. So it's not in terms of pricing. So because of that, if you come with a very short story to submit and you want to publish it internationally, the paradox is a short one will bring you far less money than a long one. And when I say far less, it's that because of the pricing thresholds, it's okay if you submit. I mean, you can put it there, but it's not gonna make you a ton of money unless you actually want to have it done for any reason. If you want your name to show on Amazon and you just don't want to do it, that's fine. But that's not the point. That's not the point. What happens is Amazon has a number of marketing tools. Very interesting, very useful. That's the point. And these marketing tools are designed to help the author, to help the publisher, and to help Amazon, of course. It's not worthy to make use of all these tools because they're not cheap. I mean, there's some cost associated with that. If your book or if your publisher or if your writing is short, so I haven't actually figured out exactly what is the sweet spot, but I can tell you for sure, if your work is sold for less than $7, any marketing tool is becoming extremely expensive. So $7 would be the minimum threshold for the price of that book, for it to make sense to promote it. Now, if we speak about this particular element here, probably a buyer that is willing to pay $7 or more would expect something more consistent. In terms more than 5,000 or more than even 10,000 words. So I would go from anywhere above a novella level of 15 up to 20,000, the minimum threshold of words for a literary work. Now, some authors do not have or don't have available at this point some stories that meet this criterion. They don't have a novel, they don't have a novella which is that long. That's okay. The solution would be then to put them together in a short volume of 2, maybe 3 stories. It works. I mean, you have 3 novellas, 3 short stories of 5 to 10,000 words. We put them all together and we make a short volume of 20,000 words or more. Makes sense. But at this point, I must confess, I will personally, I would be very picky in that if I don't like it.
Okay, Christy, you have a poor connection with us. Can you hear me? Cristian?
If I don't think it's a world-class standard story.
Okay, Cristian,
I'm not gonna publish it.
can you repeat the last 2 minutes because your signal is poor. Much better now. You are in the house. Okay. 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 Your microphone is mute. Please unmute it.
Okay.
Okay.
How about now?
Much better. Much better.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, for some reason.
If you have repeat your last information about 3-4 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying is that even if an author doesn't have a story or a novel which is 20,000 words or more, but a few short stories, we can put them all together in one volume. Yeah. And publish them together. We can do that, absolutely. But I have to confess, as a publisher, I will be very picky in the quality of those stories, because the moment we want to compete on an international market, we must have world-class writing to be published. I mean, some, and I don't want to be understood, misunderstood. It's okay. Some writers publish, a nice story, which is okay. I mean, for a local Romanian magazine that comes, on the market every other week, every other month. Something that can be, for his friends, for his family, for his a small group of fans can be okay, but not for the class, for the world class readers. So both of us being publishers, and I would definitely work with you and with the author for us to be able to select his best writings, or if there is some substance there but is not, properly polished and, ready for international publishing, to work on that in improving it, and then it's okay. And with that, I have I'm developing at this point. I don't have that many yet, but I'm working on that to grow the number of our American beta readers, to give me feedbacks on the works. So before publishing anything on Amazon, I will have some perspective of just regular people, but who love sci-fi, who regularly buy sci-fi, who regularly read sci-fi, and they can benchmark our writers with expectations. And the moment we find the balance, then we publish.
Okay. Can you tell us what do you think? What ideas sell best now in American science fiction? You have a clue about this in right moment?
Well, surprisingly for me,
Yeah.
The subgroup of readers, or the subgroup of topics, you name it, is in the fantasy part, mostly teenagers being involved. I was really surprised. I mean, they don't go that deep into the science part. With a touch of horror, perhaps, with a touch of more of the fantasy rather than sci-fi, if it makes sense. The realm of paranormal is also appealing for the most of this, because again, I don't have the metadata of that. Amazon has, but I don't have access to that. But looking for the keywords, looking for the search words, looking for the authors that are mostly read, at least on Kindle, this is pretty much the top. And I was trying to figure out why, and the answer was, as speculative it might be, but teenagers have more time than the adults, which makes kind of sense. And they live with a phone or a tablet in their hands. It's like a natural extension for them. As adults, we use, millennials more or less, but teenagers at this point, pretty much the phone is the natural extension. They don't even feel they have it in their hand. I was yesterday. I was out, and we were waiting in line. Of course, 2 meters apart, in the small groups. And there was a group of, I don't know, 6, maybe 7 teenagers. They didn't speak among themselves. They were quiet, all of them on the phone. For 10, 15 minutes, I barely heard a noise or a word coming from that group, which is just behind us. Man, I remember when I was a teenager, when you were a teenager, and we were 6 or 7, everybody knew we were there, right?
Right.
So because of teenager propensity of being online all the time, I would say that probably a literature which is rather light, having teenage characters involved in the paranormal fantasy thing would be at this point, at least if it's not necessarily the majority of the reading, but is probably in the leading group.
I understand. Okay. The role of the sci-fi is to do a little science education. Do you think that the sci-fi readers of the future will minimize the level of science in literary works right now?
Well, I don't know what to say about that. It's because it's not what I think. If it is to tell you what I think, it's two different things. One is, as a writer, do you want to sell and make money, or as a writer, do you want to sell in order to make education? There are two different approaches. Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, yes. But
I would prefer to be both.
yeah,
So, but we have to understand the mind of the reader. If if an author writes for a specific audience, then the level of science should match the education level of that audience. I'm going to give an example which is very common and very simple for everybody to understand. Think of Harry Potter. There's no science in Harry Potter. Nothing. Just fantasy. It sells like hell. So the question is, I'm not gonna say that. Hey, if you want to sell as much as Harry Potter sells, this is what you have to write. But it gives a clue. It gives a clue. I don't want to get into the back office, into the back door of Harry Potter, because it happened just like 15 years ago. I was in London, and we had a meeting with some publishers, and among those publishers was the marketing manager from the publishing company that originally has published Harry Potter, and she gave us some insights. But regardless of that, Harry Potter has created a trend. Gazillions of authors are now trying to follow the path of J.K. Rowling and create a fantasy universe that would mimic the writing of Harry Potter and the subsequent titles he has published. So it had become a trend.
Yep.
If you want as a writer to be in that trend and sell, probably just being in tune with your own thoughts and your own style, but still in that trend would be an idea. If you want to put it more of a science part, I would give the example of Indiana Jones. There's no science by itself in Indiana Jones, but if you read the books, because guess what, more than the movies, there are some books pretty much describing the plot in the movie, but the plot has some background, some scientific background in archaeology, giving the reader insights of the places and the history of the locations where Indiana Jones takes place. So it's a little bit of history, it's a little bit of archaeology, and of course a lot of blood. But that would be a clue. That would be a story. So the level of science is in a sci-fi book should match the common knowledge of a teenage student. Okay, which is not very high. If you go into too many details, pretty much either if you say a time warp disruptor, or if you say a Faraday cage, it's going to be the same thing for them. They would not differentiate what's fantasy and what actually exists in reality for 100 years. I assume, of course, but you get the point. So if it's too, and of course, if the plot, if the key element, the how can I say, the trigger
is based on a scientific thing that exists, assuming, hey, I've studied that in high school, they should know. Don't assume that. For them, it's fantasy. Okay.
Yeah.
And only for them to be surprised that, oh, that thing really exists. I can have it in my house. Yeah, I can go to Home Depot and actually buy it. Yeah, I mean, because this is the funny thing. You can say that thing exists, and they would take it. Oh, well, true. But just if you say I go to the Home Depot and bought whatever device that does this, and just create a time-space distortion, they might. Some people might actually believe it. You know, I would again. My point is, if you want to put science into the sci-fi, that would be great. I would be more than happy to publish this kind of books. However, do not build the plot or the key element based on assumption that certain science information is known. That would be pretty much a no-go, because if they don't have that, if they don't meet that assumption, and you build a whole plot on a hole in the cheese, in a piece of cheese, you're not gonna go far. But the science has a background, like let's say the mentor of the main character is the physics teacher, that every once in a while gives an advice, and that advice is backed by some science, assumptions. That would be cool. Okay, so this is how. Think about MacGyver. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if MacGyver was broadcasted in Romania.
Yes. Few years ago. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I love MacGyver.
Good movie. Good movie.
Yeah, I like MacGyver. Now, in the movie, the science is not explained. Is part of his mind, and in a critical moment, he comes up with a creative idea that uses science, but the explanations are very shallow. Of course, it's a movie, it's an entertainment. You stay home, eat popcorn. It's not, you're not in the mood of learning things about physics or chemistry, right? But it shows you how science can take you out from a serious problem and give you a solution that other people don't think of. So if probably that would be another approach. So I have a character which has some paranormal capabilities, mind reading, seeing things, I don't know, whatever. But he manifests that using science. So he kind of captured in a scientific frame his paranormal capabilities. That would be a real sci-fi. There is fi in that, right? But again, we look to see what the trend is. We look at Star Wars. Star Wars is a landmark for 2 generations already. There isn't much science in Star Wars. It's fiction. Every once in, I mean, because everything you see there is based on assumptions of things that do not exist, right? Space travel at speed higher than light speed, the Force, the whole thing, right? If you look at Star Trek, it's fiction. There is some science there, but built on things that do not exist either. So the point is, would you create an entirely fictitious universe based on physics not yet invented, that has no real ground, or you read the books of physicists foreseeing the future, making some non-fiction books about science,
Yeah.
understand how the world can develop, and build a future world or an outer world or alien world, whatever you want, where things can exist in the future based on the perspective of the actual science. That would be cool. Look at the trends in the actual world: artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, genetic engineering. Can you build on that? Can you conceive a universe where you have an android, which is not a machine, but it's a biological organism built by scratch by a genetic engineer, with a brain that can be, with an organic brain, not a positronic brain, but an organic brain that can be molded to be connected in the technological world by walking. Imagine an android that has a Wi-Fi connection and walking the streets and being connected online, and just you ask him a question, and pretty much because it's online, it's gonna Google the whole thing immediately and give you the answer. Processing metadata. So building on existing trends in the society and expanding them into the distant future, near future, that might be a clue, because for the reader, hey, I've read about that. I've seen that in the news. Oh, that's what our science teacher meant when he said this or when he said that. So again, it's numbers of ways to grow on that, and this is that fine borderline between pure fantasy and fantasy that stems from knowledge, stems from actual science. And each author has its own opinions, its own experience. I mean, obviously, if an author has a certain background, I would expect somehow to see emerging from his writing some of his professional background. Stellavirus, for example, is not by chance. I have a background in medicine, so I know a little bit more about viruses than the most of the world. I'm not an expert in virology. I'm not an expert in epidemiology, but at least a few things that I've learned, I put there. So at least I'm not, how can I say, exposed on a science level. But somebody say, hey, what the heck is this? I mean, this is not true. At least don't violate the laws of physics, right? Because somebody might say, hey, the whole thing is nonsense, because it goes with the assumption that the law of physics can be bent, can be forgotten. No, I would put emphasis on things that do not violate the common sense of science.
Yeah. Last question for you.
Was that the long answer for a short question?
Yes, yes. But full of good information. Thank you.
I'm happy. I'm happy I could help. Yes.
Thank you. The last question for you. How do Romanian writers differ from American ones? You have the both perspective right now, because you have 5 years in US.
7.
7 years. Yes, yes. You have 7 years in you're an American citizen now, and you have a little perspective about the Romanian writers and American ones. What difference is between them?
In the writing style, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. That's a tricky question, because I haven't actually thought about that in depth. I'd say it's let's start with the basics. Let's start with the length of the sentence, the length of the phrase.
We have 10 minutes, and
okay. I'm going to use only 3 or 4.
Okay.
So I think that the American writers are mostly inspired by Hollywood in that its action is short sentences, not that much about individuals' thoughts or feelings. When I read an American writer, pretty much I see a movie in my mind, and in a movie you don't see what the other person thinks. You see what the other person does. The writing is action driven. The Romanians, probably the way I perceive in most cases, again there might be exceptions, but as a group, because when you write in a group, you're influenced by the others, by the feedback other people give you, right? It's more introverts, more in-depth thinking, analyzing too much. I'm not going too deep into the feelings, expressing feelings as if the reader is in the mind of the main character. Then the sentences are kind of convoluted. I see writings where I have to read the sentence 2, even 3 times to understand which is the subordinate, which is the completive, and what relates to who, sort of saying. I'm not gonna do that before going to sleep. That would put me to sleep. Okay.
Understand.
It's not a work that I write for my literature professor. It's not a work that I write for a thesis in literature school or something. It's, how can I say, it's for fun. It should be fast, short sentence, expressing action, so it keeps me awake, because I have to think of the context the reader reads. The vast majority of people read at a leisure time, obviously, unless they're professional and have to read it during 9 to 5 time. So they read before going to bed, perhaps they read on a phone when waiting in line for the supermarket until the turn comes, and they read less, 3-4 pages, because that's 3-5 minutes they have. If I start with Sadovano style sentences and phrases with a complex construction of the wording, I'm going to lose that reader.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. We discussed about the project Carpathica 2021, and I want to tell the Romanian writers they can send their stories to office@pavcon.ro at Editura Pavcon, Pavcon Publishing House in Romania, until December 1st, 2020, because we need some months to work on these stories to make this project alive in 2021. Dear Anamaria, Borlan, Cristian, Carstoiu, thank you very much for being with us today. Cristi and I are waiting for you tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. to find out how Romanian writers can publish their works worldwide through the partnership between Pavcon Publishing House from Romania and Century Benchmark Publishing House from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. We wish you a wonderful Sunday with Atlantykron 2020 and read the Romanian writers. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.